Hello, explorers of the World Wide Web. My name is Syntax, and welcome to my corner of the internet. You're watching the Gigabit Syndicate. As what is likely my first actual content video, I'm going to tackle something that a lot of dungeon masters and game masters and tabletop gaming struggle with, especially newer ones, even experienced ones, and that is player death. Player character death. Player death would just be tragic. In any given time in a tabletop game, so long as you're playing by the rules and not fudging dice rolls constantly, you will eventually have a character death. Just last week, while playing as a PC, one of my companion's party members walked by a goblin. She's playing a noble character, like a very high elfy, snarky type character. So it made sense for her to walk by them after we defeated 5 or 6 of them, saying, "They're no threat to us, just leave them be," even though the quest called for us killing all of them. She looked at them as below her. Because of that, walking by, hardly realizing that we're still in initiative order, she provoked an attack of opportunity and had an arrow shot straight through her back. This shot from the goblin was actually a critical hit, and it took her down to -3 HP. We were walking along a bridge, by the way, I forgot that point. At this point, our DM said that as she is struck by the arrow, she falls over the bridge and into the stream below. As a player in the game, I had never seen another character get to a point to where they were fatally wounded. I'm playing a paladin of Broncala, the goddess of music. So I jump over the edge of the bridge, hop into the water, wearing heavy armor by the way, hop into the water and pull her out, stabilize her, and then give her 1 hit point with lay on hands, bring her to a total of 2. It's at that point that the severity of the situation really hit home, and I realized that character death is an instrumental mechanic in storytelling. So I would like to encourage DMs to not shy away from killing a character if they feel that it's their time. Also, there are some occasions where you want to first consult with a player before you kill their character to make sure they have preparations ready for another character. Sometimes killing a player's character can lead to trouble at the table. I personally have never encountered this, but I've seen it on the internet and I've heard of it. What I can say at that point is try your best to defuse the situation. By that I mean let them roll a character of equal or 1 level lower. Maybe there's a way that that character can find the loot of the character that had fallen. Or perhaps they were related to that character and can go on with their name in vengeance. A mechanic that I'm using in a game that I've recently started is if a character dies, they can be revived at one of 3 cathedrals or churches in the world. However, there is a catch. That catch is the character that is reviving the fallen character must have memories of the dead character. Not only that, they have to be willing to give up some of their own life force in order to bring them back to the world of the living. For a successful resurrection attempt, the character must pay 200 to 500 gold, depending on the level of the character that died, and then roll a d12. The result of this 1d12 will be taken permanently off of that character's hit points, as they are offering part of their life force in order to resurrect another character. At levels 3 and higher, you add 1d12 per level. So for example, at 3rd level, it's still 1d12. At 4th, it's 2. 5th, it's 3. Now this may seem a little overkill, but I find that if the party is attached enough to another party member, this can create some very interesting story dynamics. Now say there is conflict between 2 members of the party, and one of those members falls in combat. The other member of the party decides to resurrect the other and give up some of their own life force in the process. Once that character is rebirthed into the realm of the living, some interesting roleplay scenarios can occur. 2 foes or rivals can now become friends and proper allies that will strategize together better in combat because of this occurrence. If there is another altercation, be it verbal or physical, between the 2 party members, this party member can remind the other that, hey, I saved your ass, literally and figuratively. Another thing DMs like to do when a character dies is say another party member rolls a persuasion check to try to persuade the spirit or ghost of that character back into their body. Now, to be fair, I've DM'd since I was about 17. I am now 24, and I have never outright killed a character. What I mean by outright killed a character is, well, let me give you some backstory. In one of the first games I ever ran, there was a place called Valkyrie, which was actually the name of the entire land. There were 3 party members. There was a human ranger, a half-elf bard, I do believe, and he was playing a lich. He was a homebrew lich. We were playing by the rules of Pathfinder at the time. He was a lich necromancer, ironically enough. Anyway, something had occurred where one of the 3 big bad villains in my campaign had come across the party. Our lich carried his phylactery on him because he was trying to find a safe place to hide it as he went through his adventures. He was wary of how unsafe that was. So one of the 3 big bads was a girl named Alice, who was actually the daughter of the larger antagonist, the primary antagonist. She was overwhelmingly powerful, and the entire party in the end ended up dying. At this point, everyone kind of looked at me and said, "What now?" Improvisation is a skill that a DM should often practice. It's not one that I'm well versed in, but it's one that I do try to participate in. Because you simply can't have everything wrote down. You can never expect what your players are going to do. You can only educate partially what can happen. Although, something different usually happens because players. Afterwards, all 3 of their characters woke up surrounded in a fiery prism in a place that is just, well, it's hell. I'll give you that, it's hell. I used a biblical rendition of hell for this because I found that it would be more interesting, because the players are more closely tied in understanding the lore of Christianity. I ask that no one gets offended because this is just for fictional purposes and storytelling. There was a man there who had died long, long ago to an unjust cause and firmly believed that he did not belong in the depths of hell. He was using both magic and his understanding of technology to develop a device called the Lazarus Trigger. The Lazarus Trigger was complete, but it was without the fundamental energy source. So, the Azure Mage looked to the party members and said, "We need the jewel from the top of the crown of the king of this realm." He was actually a very powerful demon, who in his own right conducted the 3rd most layer of the 9 hells. The players went on a very long 2 or 3 session length quest in order to procure this jewel. Once they did that, they brought it back to the Azure Mage, and he used it to power the Lazarus Trigger. They all returned back to the world of the living, went back and wiped the floor with Alice some levels later, defeated Akira, the dragon companion to Avera, who is the main antagonist of that campaign. To take this further, the players use death as a mechanic later on in the game. Because I introduced this rule that there is such a device as the Lazarus Trigger, during the final fight with Avera, the human ranger named Hans decided to kill himself. I suppose it's important to note that Hans was actually a German soldier who was a paratrooper and parachuted into a dimensional rift over top of the Ardennes forest. Yeah, it's pretty out there. Anyway, he took a gun and held it to his head, pulled the trigger, and killed himself outright. To this I said, what? I didn't know it was about to unfold. That this player was about to utilize death as a mechanic to benefit himself. So, once he gets back to the 3rd layer of hell, he meets up with the Azure Mage, who is still trying to find souls that were wrongly condemned to the abyss and return them back to the world of the living. At this point, he asked the mage what type of powers he had. The Azure Mage was a conjuration wizard, and he was a very powerful conjuration wizard. After a bit of persuasion checks and a few bluffs, he decided that he was going to convince the Azure Mage to come back to the realm of the living with him. So there I am, dumbfounded, that the player playing Hans had done such a thing. I was intrigued and at the same time a little upset because I knew what was about to happen. Once Hans and the Azure Mage got back to the fight with Avera, where his 2 party members were almost down and out, the Azure Mage conjured several colossal stone titans and destroyed my in-game boss, the final boss of my entire campaign, the fruits of all my labor, in one fell swoop. That story has a point, and that point is, if you end up with a TPK, or total party kill, Don't have your entire party reroll characters. Improvise a quest, be it in the spiritual realm or the depths of hell itself. I can tell you from experience that it worked out pretty well. It made for a really good ending. Experiment with different ways to bring a character back to life, like the D12 option I made up a while ago. Or just have your player roll another character. I'm Syntax, and thanks for watching. I'm going to put up more videos like this in the future, describing various topics from a GM and DM standpoint. If you enjoyed this story and this discussion about mechanics, hit the subscribe button, and if you're really into it, you can hit that little bell down beside the subscribe button, and you'll be notified on mobile, or if you have Chrome notifications, you'll be notified when either I or Lord Rye post a video. Until next time, I'm out.